noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, welcome in 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard. Let's get it, folks. Happy Wednesday. I am down here in lovely Las Vegas. Hans, you are hanging out with Tim and the crew at RGS. But how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Home away from home, RGS Exteriors. Anybody out there that needs a new exterior, you got to get yourself out here, and let's get you started on this project, Scotty. I know there's a lot of marriages that are on the mend out there. We can save your marriage. I'm telling you, one of the greatest ways to save a marriage is get a new exterior on a home and make your wife feel like her nest is up with the Joneses. I like this. Yeah, yep. I'm telling you, man, that it is. This is how you can save a marriage. You can really kind of build that bond between you and your wife. Plus, you get to pick out all the material, and it's a fun experience. You know, Scotty, we just did this with my mom and dad's house. We got to pick out all the exterior and did the stone wraps and had a blast. And, it's just fun. You and your wife get together and have a project together.
Or it can tear you apart at the threads, man. One of the two. It'll go either really well or it'll go. No, I'm just joking. My wife and I, we always joke about how we, if we're going to do a real remodel project, is it going to bring us closer together or are we going to have problems? And we're like, oh, no, we'd be fine. But, yeah, it would mostly be me being like, hey, yeah, whatever you like. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But still a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. How's everything back there? You doing all right?
Yeah, doing great, man. Just been watching this Iowa State-Cincinnati game. Been following Jizzle James. See if he can find a way to advance past Iowa State, help BYU out a little bit. It'd be nice for BYU to have Cincinnati in their first game. But obviously right now, Iowa State leading 55-48 over Cincinnati with about 9 minutes left in this game. Winner of this game advances to play BYU in the quarterfinals. And Jizzle James right now, 6 of 14, 17 points for Cincinnati, Scotty.
That's not a bad day at the office. Not the most efficient day, but point total's pretty solid.
It's not bad. For every point he's scored, they've showed his father, Edrin James, in the stands. So it's at least 17 times.
Did you ever see Edrin play any basketball? Like, was there a court there at training camp when you were playing with him?
No, never saw the Edge play basketball. But had to tackle him many, many times in football, and that's miserable. He's a heck of an athlete, man. Extremely strong lower body. One of the most sturdy lower bodies I've ever played against. Him and Thomas Jones, the running back out of Virginia.
Thomas Jones doesn't get enough love as one of the best running backs ever played the game. I think it was injuries that cut him short, but dude was a beast. Just a beast.
Yeah, I think it was injuries. I think it might have been a hip or lower back that went on him. But he was incredible. But Edrin was great, and it's kind of fun seeing him out there supporting his kid at the beginning stages of the Big 12 tournament. But Iowa State kind of jumped out on him. I've been watching this one from the jump. I turned it on at 10:30 because there's something about tournament basketball, Scotty.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah, it's exciting. Tournament basketball. I've got a lot of friends that flew out to Kansas State. They flew out to Missouri to go watch this Big 12 tournament. They got their all pass tickets and they're out there. I mean, I don't like the fact that it's in Kansas State. I know everybody's all upset about it. They just announced that they're extending the Kansas State ticket until 2031, which bums me out because it would be great to have this thing come to Vegas. I know that there was a local guy that put it out on Twitter and was like, hey, why is this thing not in Vegas? Why are we in Kansas State? I'm with him. Like, get this thing in Vegas, and then you get all these purists that are out in Kansas. Well, it's middle ground for the Big 12. There's no great hotels. There's no great entertainment. It's Kansas City, Missouri. Nobody wants to go there. Although, that's where Liberty Gel is. I mean, there's some pretty cool church historic sites there that are pretty cool but I don't think everybody wants to do that.
No. And there's some solid barbecue. I had some really good barbecue out there when I was there earlier this year. But Yeah, in terms of going somewhere for a tournament and spending several days, yeah, I don't think Kansas City's a destination location. Now, I will say that, and I will agree with that person on the air. However, I will not tweet that out because that dude caught flames from all over the place.
Yeah, way too much.
I want no part of that. I don't want any of that heat.
How absurd was that?
Yeah.
That actually bugged me. I don't know that guy well. In fact, I might have met him one time. And I'm not sure what his responsibilities are or what he's supposed to do in the sports world, but he sends out a tweet that was very benign. It was like, hey, bring the tournament to Vegas. And I was like, yeah, thumbs up on that. Like, bring it to Vegas. It's just, Vegas has definitely jumped the shark. We talked about it yesterday. It's not as affordable as it used to be, and it's not as user-friendly as it used to be, and it's gotten more disgusting and lowbrow and blue and everything. But still, getting in and out, us being able to bring the whole crew, yes, there's selfish motives, but there's selfish motives to the people wanting to keep it in Missouri that commute from Kansas or from Kansas State.
I mean, honestly, I sent out tweets a little bummed out when they announced that the Big 12 Media Day was not going to be in Las Vegas, but they were going to put it back in Dallas, and that bummed me out because it's easy for us and inexpensive for us to send the whole staff down like we did last year to Las Vegas. We can, those are manageable expenses. When we got to put everybody on a plane and send them to Dallas, then the costs go up exorbitantly. Yeah. So, and again, it's just a selfish thing for sure, but it also is the quality of our coverage that we can provide. And so, I mean, we'll still knock it out of the park in Dallas. We just probably won't, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for Lloyd here. We probably won't have every single member of the staff down there. And that's fine. We'll still knock it out and we'll have some fun. But at the end of the day, it was just kind of nice when it was in Vegas. Everybody could drive down and be a part of it.
It was.
So,
but this Big 12 tournament, it's a good start. Right now, Iowa State leading 60-50. So it does look like BYU's first-round opponent is going to be Iowa State. Obviously, third round in actuality, but it's first round for BYU. Should be Iowa State. And at least Cincinnati's pushed them a little bit. Cincinnati's pushing the tempo. They're trying hard transition. They're trying to get to the rim. They're trying to be a little bit more physical than Iowa State. But it's the typical suspects that are kind of holding ground for Iowa State right now. And I only say I would like Cincinnati to get there because it would be an easier matchup for BYU. But I think all of us can agree we want to see Jackson and the crew of Iowa State back on the court against BYU. We all want to see that rematch, right? Even non-BYU fans want to see that rematch.
Yeah, just from a sheer entertainment standpoint, I think that's the rematch we want to see just because it would be more entertaining. That was a hell of a game in Ames, and I think we would all like to see that again in a conference tournament. All right, we got a lot to get to. Busy show today, so let's fire it up. Starting lineup right now, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Hans and Scotty G.
Let's go.
The lineup is set, and it's time to kick off the show with the biggest topic of the day. This is the starting lineup on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And the million-dollar question is, will they or won't they? And that is in regards to expanding the NCAA tournament. It's become a hot topic as of late, and, of course, it's a money grab, and it's about trying to provide the most amount of money for individual schools and, of course, individual conferences as well. The more teams you have, the more games you have, then the more you can charge for the NCAA tournament games, and the more money everybody can make. Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, was asked about it. Here's his thoughts on that.
I'm in favor of expansion to 76. I think that's the right number. I think there'll be just some decisions over the next, 90 days, 60 days. I think the economics, candidly, have to work. CBS and TNT have a marquee asset with the tournament. I know they know that. But in order for us to expand, they have to come to the table and provide the right economics. No one wants to get diluted. and we've got a great asset here. So we'll see how it plays out. I know Charlie Baker and Dan Gavitt are working hard at figuring out, where we need to be, and they'll do the right thing. But the economics matter.
Economics absolutely matter, Hans. And look, there's not anything going on in the world of college athletics right now that doesn't have people with dollar signs in their eyes, because everybody thinks they've got an opportunity to make just a little bit more money. And in the arms race we have right now in college athletics, everybody's looking to squeeze whatever pennies they can get.
Yeah, but then there's this level of exhaustion and dilution. And I know that not everybody's on board with this. And we were talking with one of the better insiders in college basketball, Jerry Palm, and he goes directly against all of that. This is me asking the question to Jerry.
Jerry, are you feeling these rumors of tournament expansion? Are you kind of in on that, or would you be on board with a bit of tournament expansion? And if so,
no.
What would you – okay, so across the board, you don't want to see it.
I am steadfastly in favor of going back to 64.
Okay, so not even having the 4 playing.
No. That was the perfect number. It should have never changed. 72. I mean, I can barely find 4 teams to put as the first 4 out that have any shot of making this tournament. I can't see expanding for those 4 teams. There are teams I like personally on that list. It doesn't matter. Those 4 teams don't belong in this bracket or any bracket, and I'm steadfastly against expansion, and I want to go back to 64.
So is it just the full genesis is money, right? It's not even about –
It's always money.
Yeah, it's not like who are we missing or are we –
No, here's the thing. If I thought they were expanding for VCU or UC San Diego or, teams like that, Drake, maybe you could talk me into it, but they're not. They're expanding for Cincinnati. They're expanding for Northwestern. That's who they're expanding for, and I just don't believe for a minute it has any other motivation.
He's right. There's nothing wrong with what he's saying. He's spot on. Everything's factual there. It's not to help out the little guy. It's not to provide greater competition and greater opportunities for schools, big and small, that would have been left out. It's about the money. And it's like the old line, follow the money. Well, the money could lead us to an expanded NCAA tournament. And here's where I'm okay with it, Hans, is that and I made the analogy the other day in regards to college bowl games. Everybody thinks we have too many bowl games, and we might, but at the end of the day, are we complaining about too many football games? Like, that's the time of year where I'm trying to watch as many as I can because I know they're going to go dark for 7 months. So I'm all about watching as much football as I can because I know I'm about ready to hit the long drought of no college football. So if it's Central Michigan and Northern Iowa, then yeah, I'm probably going to watch it because I love football. I love college basketball. And what's the one thing college basketball has going for it? It's the tournament. Look, I love college hoops, and I'm knee-deep in it from November through March. But I know I'm the anomaly. Most people really don't care about college athletics until this week. This week, the NCAA or the conference tournaments. That's when a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, it's tournament week. Let's watch that. And then everybody's going to be dialed into the NCAA tournament. So if that's the case, why not lean into your strong suit?
So I think you and I were kind of on different pages on this, Scotty. I think I more agree with Jerry Palm. Keep it at 64 and then allow these other tournaments to build specialty tournaments. These specialty tournaments, they can build up and they could do interesting things in and of themselves. This college basketball crown, whatever this is, this new 16-team men's postseason tournament that's going to be going down in Las Vegas is the perfect example of it. So if it's not the NIT or the CIT, then, well, maybe you can start something interesting. Grab 16 teams that you feel are good matchups that you can still throw out there. You get backing and sponsorships. Fox Sports and FS1 are the latest sponsors for this college basketball crown. And you can do extra basketball that way. But I think you purify the field of 64. I don't think you're going to find 65, 66, 67, and 68 that's going to be real competitive and actually get themselves into an Elite Eight or a Final Four, or eventually what we all want to see is the championship. It's all going to be weeded out. And I think allow these other tournaments and allow these other brands to hold their own little gig, but keep the NCAA tournament prime. Keep it a major honor to be invited to the NCAA tournament. Open it up to 72, just allows another 5, 6, 7 teams, 8 teams that don't deserve to be there to have the right to say, oh, I made it to the NCAA tournament. No, you didn't. You're a bum. You didn't deserve to be there. You know you didn't deserve to be there. You were an early round exit. You couldn't even hit the play-in. So you suck. You should have been in some no-name tournament in Vegas, rolling around the round bowl trying to find a little bit of interest from Fox Sports, not in the NCAA tournament. So I more agree with Jerry Palm than I do Yormark, or I think even Kim Pomeroy came on and said that
Ken's all about it.
Yeah, so I go against Ken and I go against Yormark, and I say, nah, if I could, I think I'd even whittle it down further. But I do like the full 6 rounds. I mean, I like that there's a lot of games and you have to be consistent to find yourself all the way into that Final Four and championship game. So I like the build out of 64. I don't think that there are 64 that are worthy, but I like the build out of 64 for the tournament.
Well, there's a majesty to the tournament that's really cool. Like there's a team last night that punched their ticket. First time they're in an NCAA tournament since 1991. They're not paying out a single dollar of NIL. They're from a small conference. They're going to go to that 16 matchup, and if they face it number 1, they'll lose by 40. Do they deserve to be there? Absolutely not. No. I mean, in terms of, are they one of the 64 best teams in college basketball? Absolutely not. There's no way. But it's cool, and it's part of what we have in March and how things are all set up, and you live for those 16-1 matchups, in which now we've seen a couple of those. But from a sheer business standpoint, Hans, there could be an ulterior motive to this, because you bring up that tournament in Vegas. And I know there are a lot of people, and I've talked to a couple athletic directors about this, that are keeping a very close eye on that tournament, because they are doing something that the NCAA tournament is not doing, and that is providing NIL money to players that participate in the tournament. And so this NCAA tournament, they're looking at like, well, crap, because if you've got players, and there's one thing that we know about college football and college basketball players, especially high-level players, what moves the meter for them is money.
Right.
And I think that there is a growing concern in the NCAA, not that it's going to happen next year, not that it's going to happen in 3 years, but in maybe 7 to 10 years, that tournament, that one specifically, is aimed at taking down the NCAA tournament. That is trying to build up a new tournament that will pay its players for participation, to the point where there might be a group of players that have that earn a spot in the NCAA tournament, but the coach is like, hey, I'm going to put this to a team vote. Which one do you guys want to be in? They're like, well, we want to be in the one that gives us money. Well, it's not as prestigious. It's not as cool. Oh, we don't care about that. We want money. We want something in our back pocket. All right, well, then we'll go to that tournament. And I think there is a growing concern that could happen, and I do think that's why some of these member institutions are looking at expanding in hopes of killing some of those tournaments and not eliminating competition.
Yeah, sure. They do see it as competition, and they probably could kill it if they really tried, if they really got forceful with it. But the thought of these, 16-team tournaments that play out in a matter of 6 days instead of stretching it out and really extending things, and in those 6 or 7 days, you're going to receive some type of NIL, some type of return. I think everybody would want to play in that. And the other thing is, if I can find the right 16 and make this a really prestigious event, make it a big event, that's why it feels like this new crown in Vegas is trying to find Big 12 teams and trying to find teams with name value, as well as including some of these darlings to show that even small school basketball can win big-time games. This is a big option for these people. And I could see the NCAA tournament wanting to snuff it out, because if it got big enough, let's say 16 goes to 32 next year, And let's say they're paying out now a top 25, maybe a top 35 team, maybe even a top 20 team to be in this tournament, and you start to make some noise, then it could be kind of an interesting competition. So I could see the NCAA tournament wanting to put it to bed, but I don't want to see the NCAA tournament expand at all. I wanted it 64, and the more I thought about what Jerry Palm said, the more I agree with it. I can't find an extra 6 teams, 8 teams, 12 teams that are eligible or that are worthy of that level of invite. But the other thing I would go to, and I'll just throw this on the back end of it, Scotty. If expanding it allows you to give more money to the teams that make it, then expand it. If expanding it dilutes and brings down the allotment that you can give to teams, then don't expand it. Because I do think that there needs to be a monetary reward for the teams that do get accepted to the biggest college basketball tournament on earth. There needs to be a substantial award, and it's got to be financial. And if increasing it gives me more money to give to those teams, I'm okay with that. If decreasing it gives me more money to give to those teams, if I took it down to 32 and I could double the amount I give to teams that make that tournament, then I would rather do that, because if you're deserving of a 32-team tournament, then you're deserving of that type of money. And we're going to find the real champion out of 32, I think.
I agree. And I think that that's, Brett Yormark's point there is like, I'm in favor of it if the economics line up. And because that dude's a bottom line guy, that's an Excel sheet guy. He's looking at profit and losses, and he's like, okay, if we can make more money, then yes, absolutely. If it's going to dilute or we're going to take less, then no, absolutely not. All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And Aggies, yeah, we've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Just past 12:30. If you missed the first segment of the show, talking about a little NCAA tournament expansion, all you have to do is log on to the podcasting platform of choice. Just search Hans and Scotty, and you'll get every segment of every show sent directly to you. You just want to hear the interviews, you can do that. You want to hear the whole shows, you can do that hour by hour. Lloyd does a great job of offering you the golden corral of Hans and Scotty. Everything on a silver platter in buffet style. Whatever you want is yours.
Speaking of tournament play, Scotty, Gonzaga just wrapped up the West Coast Conference tournament by getting a win over St. Mary's. Yeah. Both St. Mary's at 28-5 and Gonzaga, who just secured it by winning the tournament, are headed to the NCAA tournament. But apparently St. Mary's got a couple of wins over the Bulldogs throughout the regular season, and then Gonzaga gets this tournament win, and now they've won the tournament 20 times. We were talking about Gonzaga's success yesterday, but 20 wins under Mark Few, 20 tournament wins under Mark Few. And he just sealed it up with this win against St. Mary's. But I thought this number was interesting. St. Mary's finished 0 for 16 from three-point range. The first time in 787 games under Coach Randy Bennett that the team failed to make a three-pointer. 0 of 16 in that a championship tournament game against Gonzaga to end a 787-game streak under Randy Bennett. That's crazy how bad St. Mary's played in this championship game.
Well, have you seen Gonzaga's line from three?
No.
1 of 15. So Gonzaga shot 1 of 15. St. Mary's 1 of 16. Teams are a combined 1 of 31 from the three-point shooting team. So Gonzaga, I want to say, I saw a number on this. Gonzaga won a game in which they shot under 7% from the three-point line, under 42% from the field. They were out-rebounded 43-28 by St. Mary's and still won. When you add all those stats, that's the first time in the last 120 games. Teams that had those kind of advantage was like 121-0.
Jeez.
And it took a 0 of 16 shooting performance by St. Mary's for Gonzaga to win that game. That's just a horrific night. And if you're the West Coast Conference, that's not something that you're going to want to parade around and say, hey, look at our guys. It's funny, just looking at bracketology and seeing where BYU might end up and where Utah State might end up. And there's a lot of people that have Utah State slotted in as a 9. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that means you got to play that 8 matchup. Who is that? Well, there's UConn, who's checking in as an 8 seed. I want no part of that team because UConn will all of a sudden realize they're UConn and go on a tear like they would. Louisville's another one that's in 8, and I want no part of Louisville. But Gonzaga sits at 8 as an 8 seed. I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. Utah State, Gonzaga. If Gonzaga plays like that again, sign me up for that one. Utah State might be able to get a win there, but they were just absolutely abysmal last night.
All right, I'm going to ask you the tough question. Let's say BYU is playing in the West Coast Conference this year. Do they win it?
Oh, jeez. No, because they never would. They would be up by 20 against Gonzaga at halftime and end up losing by 3. Like, it was never in the cards for some reason. I don't know why. There were really good BYU teams, and they just never seemed to actually come up and find a way to get it done. So I would like to say yes. I would like to say, oh, yeah, sure, absolutely they would. Probably not. Well, they'd probably find a way to have things fall apart on them.
St. Mary's, of course, winning the West Coast Conference regular season championship. Gonzaga winning the tournament championship. St. Mary's goes 28-5. Gonzaga 25-8. If you threw this BYU team into that West Coast Conference regular season, you don't think that they could pull off that championship? I don't think they absolutely could. Well, I don't think they would because they didn't, even with good teams. They didn't.
Yeah.
So until you were able to see something like that, that's why I would love somehow to see a BYU-Gonzaga tournament matchup or somehow a BYU-St. Mary's tournament matchup just because I've got an axe to grind with the West Coast Conference and how things went there for BYU. Everybody's like, oh, so pleased that they took us because where else were we supposed to go? And, boy, we're so grateful for their generosity and open arms. Yeah, they also took advantage of your brand and your name. Like they got a lot out of you being a part of the conference, including never giving up a championship to you, not a tournament or regular season championship. And I feel like I've kind of felt like a raw deal over that whole thing. So I'd love to see BYU get a shot at St. Mary's or Gonzaga, but I don't think that they win that tournament or that conference either.
All right, you ready for a crazy prediction that you can put on the dock and then make fun of me in a decade?
Yeah, let me pull up the dock real quick. Okay,
I got way too many of these floating around. BYU. So BYU was in the West Coast Conference for 11 years? I want to say. BYU will win a Big 12 conference basketball tournament in 10 years or less. They will win a tournament. Something that they were never able to do in the West Coast Conference, they will do it in the Big 12.
All right. I am in the next what years?
10 years.
A conference tournament or the outright conference championship?
Conference tournament.
Oh man. What made you think of that?
Just because how BYU has elevated their game and their roster and their resources since making the jump from the West Coast Conference. Like, you're right. I think BYU, if you took this BYU team and put it in the West Coast Conference, I think for sure that they would probably win that tournament. But the problem is this BYU team doesn't exist if it's in the West Coast Conference because you don't get Yegor. You don't add these players that are on this roster. You don't get Kevin Young to come coach there. BYU is still a mediocre basketball team. But once they got to the Big 12 and they made the commitment to resources and said, hey, guess what? You want to come here? Not only are we going to pay you, we got an NBA coach who wants to be here because he wants to coach in the best conference in college basketball. And you're going to be playing in some of the best venues in all of college athletics. So come here. And people are like, yeah. When you're like, hey, Yegor, come here. You're going to be playing, but just make sure you don't confuse a volleyball line for a three-point line when you're playing at Pepperdine. Like, he's like, no, I'm not coming. A.J. DeMond, he's not coming if BYU's in the West Coast Conference. They're not. So that's why I feel really comfortable, because BYU is matching everything everybody else is doing in the Big 12. In the West Coast Conference, they weren't able to match what Gonzaga was doing, and they very rarely were able to match what St. Mary's was doing. But now they're in they're hanging out with the big boys. They've stepped up financially. Now you have players who want to play there because they want to go up against that competition, and you got an NBA coach who wants to coach there because he wants to coach against the best competition.
Well, I'm a little bit worried that this House versus NCAA settlement, where these schools will now distribute revenues equally throughout their programs, and they're trying to get rid of collectives and make it about university pay less than it is about collectives pay, that what this is going to eventually do is drive the cheaters back underground.
Yes. Yeah, no, you bring up a good point here.
And hold the righteous accountable again. And anytime you do that, BYU is going to be at a detriment. Anytime that you're doing the checks and balances and you're driving deceit underground, I'm just going off my experience having played at BYU. And, Scotty, you know I would tell it like it was. I mean, they were so upfront and honest because they were so afraid of what it would do to the church's reputation that the brethren that are in charge of that university are insistent that nothing be done dirty, because if it gets done dirty, then there's heavy repercussions.
Yeah.
You just can't make the church look bad. So if they are cheating, it's driven so deep and it's done so privately that it's probably not as effective as a Kansas or a Kansas State might be willing to do if we get back to that point. That's what I'm worried about, that cheating is just going to be driven back underground.
You know what? That's completely fair. That's a completely fair statement to make there, because you're right. These teams had no qualms about cheating before. This House settlement, where everything gets put under one umbrella, is going, and everybody's dealing with the same kind of revenue. Well, then when everybody's equal and you can't outspend, then you got to find a way to have an advantage. Well, how do you have an advantage? You cheat.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you're right. And I don't think BYU – BYU was none too pleased when the whole it was Nick Emery or Jack. I don't want to call out the wrong Emery kid, but with the whole Harry Potter land and the concert tickets and the car and all that other stuff, like, they were not happy about that. That's not a good look. Mm-hmm. And because not only are people taking shots at the school, then they're gonna also take shots at the church, and that can't fly. And so you're right. There is a high level of criticism when it comes to BYU in terms of we can't go down that path because we'll be held to a higher standard than everybody else because we put ourselves on a higher standard than everybody else.
I got to give BYU credit because in this window that they had to get financially competitive and do it on the up and up, they've been one of the more aggressive teams and one of the more aggressive universities to do it on the up and up. And that puts them in the position where you would make the proclamation you just made, Scotty. They got busy spending and they were ready to be competitive. But I can promise you, I think they're gonna make some noise in this Big 12 tournament. If they get past Iowa State tomorrow, they could be a real problem throughout the rest of this tournament. And if this tournament settles and let's say they're in the championship game or I mean, even making it to the semifinals and being a top 4 seed getting into this tournament, well, the Iowa States and the Kansases and the Kansas States of the world are going to look at that saying, oh, no, we can't have that. No. We're not going to be sharing our titles and our conference with BYU basketball. That's not why we brought them here. We brought them to take advantage of their logo. We brought them because they couldn't even finish to the tops of the West Coast Conference. How dare they think they can do that here? And they're going to get competitive over it. And they're going to do everything they can to force everything dark underground again. Because right now, BYU's taking full advantage of the up and up. Oh, you can pay him? Okay, well, let's pay him. Oh, there's gray area that's not bad. It's not good. It's not really talked about. Well, let's pay him, and let's get competitive, and they've done that. And here they find themselves as a top 4 seed in the Big 12 tournament in their second year in this conference. It's pretty impressive.
It really is. It absolutely is. All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. What you may have missed coming up next. Kick off your 1 o'clock hour coming up here in a bit as well. It's all right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Number one.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The great Kurt Helin is going to join us coming up here in about 10 minutes from right now. We'll talk some NBA with him, but the college basketball tournaments continue on. And the season now officially done for the University of Utah. They lose to Central Florida in the opening round of the Big 12, 87-72. It's been a rough year for the Utes. You lose a coach. You deal with all kinds of adversity. And finally, this thing comes to an end, and we can get the Alex Jensen era started on the Hill.
Are there any postseason opportunities for this team? And if there are, would they take it?
There might be like that CBI or one of those other ones, not the NIT, but some of these other, but they'll turn that down. They won't take that with the new coach coming aboard and guys probably looking at transfer portal opportunities. They couldn't even fill the roster right now. So I would highly doubt any of that happens. And now it's Alex Jensen, who is going to finish out the season with the Mavericks and will finish his coaching responsibilities there, but will also have to put a staff together, keep an eye on the transfer portal, which will open up here in, I believe, a couple weeks. I think after week 1 of the NCAA tournament, it opens up. So I think that there's certainly a lot of play there that he's going to have to do double duty there for a minute. And it could not come at a more important time for the University of Utah because they've got to find a way to jump in with both feet into the water and make sure that they start building that roster up because, it just happens. Like, you can't say if you keep your roster, it's a matter of how many you're going to keep because you're going to have a bunch of people leave. Lawson Lovering, his dad tweeted out after the game. He said, the brutal comments, the individual player hatred, the administration and fan base writing these Utes off with 3 weeks left and then openly celebrating their demise. The young men fought. If you can't see that, we have nothing to discuss. Proud of this team. It's more than basketball. #Go Utes. But how about him calling out the administration, writing them off with 3 weeks left and openly celebrating their demise?
Ooh. Yeah, as a parent, you kind of lose your mind at times. And you take it very personal, and you see it from your view and your angle. And I can't wrong a parent for the way they see it, only because I've been a parent. I am a parent, and I've been in those moments where you see things a certain way, and that's how you're going to hold it. The problem is I know better than to emotionally get on social media and throw something out there because – you got to let the emotions calm down.
Yeah.
At the end of one of my kids' high school seasons, Scotty, something terrible happened.
Yeah.
And I wanted to blow it up on air. I wanted to blow it up on social media. I wanted to go all red-faced and chap butt, and I wanted to take somebody down and something down, and you just can't do it. I know that the way you see it as a parent, it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, but I don't know if it's the right way to go, Scotty. Maybe you feel like it is. Tim?
No.
Tim's sitting here with us, and Tim, you're a sports dad, have been for a long time. Did you hear the tweet? Was that a tweet, Scotty?
Yeah, it was a tweet.
Did you hear the tweet that Scotty just read?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I can't say who, but let's just say somebody close to the program was talking to this the day that the firing or whatever you want to say happened. And I hate to say it, but this dad's, again, probably shouldn't have said it but he's not wrong. to fire a coach with 3 weeks left in the season, what that tells me.
And it wasn't over.
No, not at all.
It wasn't over.
What it tells all of us was, hey, we got to do this now, because if he goes on a run and they win some games, we can't do this. We can't fire him. If he wins 3 or 4 games, if they beat BYU again, we can't fire him.
Right.
So they had to fire him.
The other thing it tells us is that they knew Alex Jensen was the guy.
And that was my next point, that they knew this was already happening. So this dad is not wrong.
But
it doesn't mean you should say it.
But in a way,
Yeah.
But in a way, either is Mark Harlan.
Yeah.
Sure. I know, like, we can all sit there and beat him up, but in a way, he had Alex Jensen in the bag.
Yeah.
And
which, let's be honest, it's a home run. In my opinion, that's a home run. It's a home run hire for Utah. I think that as a BYU guy, I think we should be nervous. I think they just got an amazing coach.
Wow, Scotty, I didn't see that tweet, man. Good catch. That's harsh, buddy.
Yeah, and I don't think his son has any more eligibility left, which I think is one of the reasons why he did it, or maybe he felt a little safer in doing it, knowing that, hey, it's not like I'm costing him any eligibility or any transfer opportunities. But as a parent, like, it's really easy. Like, I always joke all the time about, we'd get on air and get on our moral high ground about not yelling at officials and stuff like that. And then you actually have a kid that plays and you're like, okay, I get it now. Like, I'm not condoning how bad parents can be at games and stuff like that, but you kind of get it when your kid gets screwed over on a call and you're like, wait a minute, you 15-year-old pimple-faced little dork. No, you don't call that holding penalty on my kid. No, absolutely not. And so, like, in your mind, you're like, I know I got to be better. I know this is going against everything I've said, but damn it, that kid is a dork and he doesn't know the game, And so it's like, I can see it. I totally understand it. I don't condone it, but I get it. I totally get it.
Yep.
Well, and the other thing, too, is obviously as my son's playing college ball, he's, sitting here in the room today. He's home for spring break. But if I had some issues with his head coach, it would not be appropriate for me as a high school coach and as a dad to throw something out on Twitter. It would be appropriate for me to call him and have a conversation.
Would you do it after his eligibility?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that I would hope I would not.
Yeah.
I would hope I wouldn't.
I would hope you wouldn't, too. Because I think down the line, I think you'll regret doing it more than you'll regret not doing it.
Well, look, here the reality of it is what is this going to accomplish? He's venting, but this is going to accomplish nothing. The administration is not going to call him and apologize.
Right.
What it's done is it's just drove a wedge between him, the school, and his son. So
I do. It makes me feel bad, though, Scotty. It makes me feel bad for the parent because obviously he feels burnt, and he feels like his kid got burnt. And to a degree, they did get burnt because if Craig Smith, in his motivating ways, has full realm and is given every opportunity, maybe he motivates those kids, and maybe they get another couple wins, and maybe they find a win in the tournament. And maybe they do something big. But like Tim said, but then maybe you can't let Craig Smith go, and then you can't find that window again with Alex Jensen. So I get both sides.
Hey, Hans, though, when Bronco yells at Rock and he cries and calls Daddy and is upset, we want you to throw on the radio. Hey, Bronco's mean to my kid.
I'm just telling you, I'm a 1930 parent. So when he calls and says Bronco's mean, I say, what did you do?
Well, bro, you and I are on the exact same page, and that's why we have our young men that we have.
Yeah.
And that's why half the kids that I coach and that you help coach at Lehigh, you can vouch that. That's why these kids are soft nowadays.
Because the next call is to Bronco, and it's run him until he doesn't do it again.
Yeah.
That's how you and I are going to handle it.
Yes.
That's how Scotty's going to handle it. But some of these parents are going to call up administration and say, he yelled at my kid. You need to fire him.
That ain't the way.
Nope. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Greetings from Las Vegas. Hans is down at RGS as we get you ready for the start of conference tournament week. Utah losing last night. BYU in action tomorrow as they will take on Iowa State. And Iowa State has put the finishing touches on Cincinnati, so they are moving on to the quarterfinals to take on BYU. And then Utah State will take on the winner of Air Force and UNLV coming up tomorrow. It's going to be UNLV, so just prepare yourself for that. I hope so, because, Hans, I did all my preparation for UNLV, which means Air Force will probably win.
Well, if it is Air Force, you prepared for them last week, so you're ready for that too.
We'll be all right. Expected to hear from Kurt Helin here any moment. as we get you ready or we talk a little Utah Jazz. Jazz, again, scared the heck out of the Celtics the other night, but just can't get over the hump. I mean, it feels like I'm being like corporate shrill guy, but it just feels like there's a lot of really good things going on with the Jazz outside of winning, which is also a good thing going on for the Jazz. There's
some good things, and there's some youth. And Utah Jazz tonight, 11.5-point dog to Memphis. Memphis is playing some good basketball right now. Utah Jazz will do some good things. They'll probably make a push or two against Memphis. But Utah Jazz ultimately are doing what they need to do right now, which is lose.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. Kurt Helin joining us now from NBC Sports and ProBasketballTalk.com. Kurt, how are you?
Hey, Kurt.
You're bringing me in on the losers theme? Okay, I'm good. No.
Well, breaking news, the Jazz, with that loss to Boston the other night, have now been officially eliminated from playoff consideration. So mathematically, the Jazz are out of the playoffs.
Well, that was keeping you up at night, so I'm sure that was not a surprise. Like you said, look, you want to see growth and you want to see things, but you also want to get one of those top 3 spots just to help your odds a little bit. So it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, the next mathematic order that we want to hear from is that they're mathematically locked into one of the top 3 spots, Kurt.
Exactly, and I think they're going to be. The way things are going, as long as they don't get suddenly hot, which I don't think is going to happen. We've seen it happen with. I give Jordi Fernandez credit in Brooklyn for wringing wins out of that team when they shouldn't be able to, but it's driving their management nuts.
What's the general consensus of Will Hardy as a head coach across the league?
I would say it's pretty high that he's gotten a fair amount out of these guys and been pretty innovative. And look, they obviously had a nice, more success than expected a little bit last season. I think that the sense is that he's good at this, and then people want to see what happens when he gets a roster to really develop and grow, and then one kind of better set to go win some games.
Realistically, as you look at it, let's say, just for hope and expectation's sake, that they do win the lottery. They get the number 1 pick. They go Cooper Flag. How far out are we talking before this team and Will Hardy are truly competitive again, Kurt?
Probably still a couple of years. And I'm a big Cooper Flag fan. I believe because of his defensive play and his intensity, I think he's going to have a relatively good impact as a rookie. But you're not, man. I think San Antonio is a good example. Wembanyama's pretty good at basketball, and they struggled his rookie season still, because even as good as he is and as much as he was learning the game, they've got to put the right pieces around that guy. And so I don't think the goal is to do it quickly. The goal is to do something that builds long term. So I think you're going to see a couple more years of building that, but you'll start to see the growth. You'll start to see what can be.
So everybody knows it's about Cooper Flag at probably number 1, but talk about 2, 3, 4. What does the rest of the top of the draft look like?
2 is probably Dylan Harper. I put together a board and talked to some people the other day and put together kind of a big board, because I don't think until you see the lottery you really want to get too specific. But Dylan Harper is kind of everybody's number 2 right now out of Rutgers. Just real feel for the game, real understanding, ability to get to the rim, not rushed. I don't want to say he's this good because of the year Cade Cunningham has had, but it's that style of game, kind of a big point guard who can control things. Then you get Ace Bailey third, who is – you might have the high – with all due respect to Cooper Flag, you can argue he has the highest ceiling of anybody in this draft if he can live up to it. He is a prototypical NBA wing if his shot comes along, and if his shot's there, but if the handles come along and the rest of his game rounds out, there's a lot to like there. He could be special. And I'll tell you everybody's kind of high on right now at 4th, and if he was going to sneak up, is VJ Edgecombe, out of a big guard out of Baylor, who is just – I think he's just a freak athlete. And there's people pretty high on him around the league, even though he struggled a little bit of late.
Hey, why is Rutgers not better at basketball?
That's a
frankly.
I've asked that question. Apparently, the talent around them is pretty. Those two guys is pretty bad, and what teams have been able to do because there's not enough shooting is just sag off. Like Dylan Harper isn't a great shooter. He wants to get to the rim. Ace is a decent shooter, but again, would prefer to attack off the dribble and create that way. And the rest of the team is weak enough that they can literally just pack the paint on them and turn them into a little bit of a one-dimensional team. So apparently there's not enough around them. But I tell you what, if I was one of those boosters playing all that NIL money and we got these two guys and this is the team, yeah.
Kurt, do you think LeBron James regrets confronting Stephen A. Smith?
That's a good question. In that setting, he might. If he had it to do over again, he might try to find a way to do it away from the microphones, even though I'm not sure or away from cameras, which is easier said than done in either of their cases. But I don't think it played out just because Stephen A. I just don't think it played out the way LeBron would have liked, which was kind of a lay off my kid, you know. But he was being a parent in that moment, and I think a lot of us kind of get that. But I don't know that it played out. Do you guys think that played out the way he had hoped?
No, I don't. And I am shocked because I wake up every morning. I wake up and I go to 3 or 4 of my favorite sports sites to start to gather thoughts and opinions for the day's show. And the last 3 days, the only thing that you can read or see anything about is Stephen A's take or LeBron's take or the video replayed or talking about how Bronny James at one point in the game stared down Stephen Smith and that ticked off LeBron. And this whole thing has just become one big story. I can't imagine that's the way LeBron wanted this to play out.
No, I don't. I don't know. And it's become such a, I don't know. So much of the commentary around the NBA, especially online, can be hot takey, and this just falls right into that. Like, oh, hey, let's make a thing out of this, rather than I was about to say rather than talk about the game, but then again, even when Shaq talks about the game, he's not sure who the Detroit coach is. So what are you going to do?
Oh, that was horrible, calling him Chauncey and getting called out, and then him being like, wait, who's the coach? It's not Chauncey. Instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry, did I say Chauncey? I meant Bickerstaff. Like I can't believe he was that off. Yeah,
and I credit to Candace Parker for not letting it slide.
Yeah.
Oh, she's funny.
I like her. I like her a lot, actually.
She stopped him and said, I can't let that go, Shaq. You said that was Chauncey.
I'm not sure Chauncey keeps his job in Portland right now. He is one of the guys I think most likely to change teams this summer anyway. And we're talking 2 jobs ago with Detroit.
We always say on this show, if you're watching Inside the NBA for high-quality NBA X's and O's knowledge, that's not your show. You're watching that because of the entertainment.
It's obviously become a talking point around the NBA and with some of the players that are frustrated with those. Look, Inside the NBA, you're right. It's a high entertainment show. It's fun to watch. They have great banter. And frankly, Stephen A. Smith can be the same thing where he's obviously got this big audience and Pat McAfee and some of these guys. And players are just kind of frustrated with the level of discourse around that. Durant's talked about it. LeBron's talked about it. And I don't know what the league does about that because I don't know, I'd love to come in and say, we at NBC next year will have this really erudite, smart discourse, and I hope we do, but I don't know how much that changes the fact that Shaq is how many current players are more popular than Shaq? 3?
Yeah.
4? Yeah, if that.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe 2.
Yeah, LeBron, Curry, Durant, but it's a short list, so and every time I watch a game, I get to see 18 Shaq commercials for various products.
Yeah. So, well, and I don't want to toot the horn of a former competitor of yours, but like Zach Lowe was an awesome NBA expert. I loved listening to his podcast. I learned more about the game from Zach Lowe. But yet he gets jettisoned by ESPN because they don't want that. They want funny. They want controversial. Yep. And Hans and I live in that world. We could sit here and read a box score and have great takes on a game and nobody cares. But then all of a sudden we talk about our favorite apple pie in the state of Utah and all hell breaks loose on Twitter. It's like crazy. Like, okay, I guess that's what people want, and people want us to be a little different. So there you go.
Are you putting cheddar cheese on top of your apple pie?
Ooh, haven't yet. Haven't yet. No.
It's a Midwestern thing that my grandmother did, and my Wisconsin grandmother did, because they put cheese on everything. And it sounds like it should be terrible, and it's not. And I hate to admit that publicly.
One of the newest things that I'm doing with apple pie is I'm doing a crushed graham cracker crust that's kind of melted into butter and then frozen on a pie wall, and then I fill that crust with ice cream, and then I push a mini apple pie down into that and cover the whole thing with whipped cream. So it's a graham cracker ice cream apple pie pie.
It's like feeding your pig bacon.
It's like wrapping a hot dog in bacon. Yes, it's kind of like that. But Kurt, I did want to ask you about this, just back to the Bronny James situation, because I think everybody's right. Bronny's not an NBA player. 25% from the field, 20% from three. He's miserable when he's on the court. It's terrible, and this has become a gimmick. And one of my favorite sports voices, I was listening to his podcast this morning talking about Bronny, and I couldn't agree with him more. He said, you got to be really careful when you're a professional league and you're allowing gimmicks. Now, I loved Kobe Bryant, but the Kobe Bryant farewell tour was a gimmick. He didn't mention that. That's from me. That was a gimmick. This LeBron-Bronny thing is a gimmick. The NFL that I played in, Kurt, the NFL doesn't allow gimmicks. They didn't do a Peyton Manning farewell tour. The second the Broncos were done with him and he couldn't contribute to another Super Bowl, he was out. The Colts, they saw his future. He was out. Like, they don't allow farewell tours. They don't allow gimmicks. And gimmicky stuff eventually catches up with you as just that, a gimmick. And I think the NBA needs to be more careful with this stuff.
I agree with you. I would say what happens is, if you're in the NBA, because of the nature of the sport, where if you are a LeBron or a Kobe or the 10 guys, give or take, that you can truly say I can build a championship team around this guy as the number one, then you get away with whatever you want, which is why, like, the Doncic trade left everybody like, are you kidding me? When there are so few of those guys that they're given crazy leeway. A lot of it's come out. Some of it's come out with Jimmy Butler because he's not that guy anymore, right? And it's something like, he was staying during the finals in Denver. He was staying out in Boulder. All that stuff happens. All those guys get away with it. But you're right. Sometimes it reaches the point of, like, come on, we're paying Bronny for 3 years and I'd love for the kid to make it. I really would, but I don't see how it gets there.
Are you buying stock in the Warriors right now, or is it just the calm before the inevitable Jimmy Butler storm?
Well, am I buying stock for this? Can I buy for this season year and sell? Yeah. And sell, maybe during the offseason? Long term, Jimmy Butler, I don't expect it to work out, but short term, yeah. I mean, when he's happy and he's focused, and by the way, Thursday night they get Kuminga back, which gives them a little more depth and a little more athleticism. And it's a little bit of a weird fit because he wants to play the 4 and Butler's a 4, and there's just a lot of people in the same spot. But I think they're a threat in the West, where after Oklahoma City, everybody's flawed. Like, that team can make a run.
Who are you buying more of, the Lakers or Golden State? Golden State or the Lakers went on that nice 8-game winning streak, and then they've lost the last 2 or the last 3, Kurt, to, I think Boston was a Brooklyn.
Yeah.
What's happening there, and who are you buying more stock in?
I'd still probably buy the Lakers in a playoff series just because of LeBron and Luka having proven they can do it there. And I guess not that Curry hasn't, because he's had some games, but I just trust that lineup a little more right now. That said, LeBron's out for weeks with a hamstring injury, and they're just not the same team. And you saw it against. I mean, they lost, like you said, they lost in Brooklyn. Without him, and they're just not the same team. They could slide a little in the West until he gets back. They are dependent on his defense and him to be the offensive glue in some ways, because Doncic can take over some of that shot creation, but you need secondary shot creation. You need somebody who does. LeBron's just kind of willing to do whatever it takes to win at this point in his career, and so having that guy matters. I'm not. That said, in the postseason, I think they've got a chance. I think they've got a chance to be a real threat. We'll see.
Hey, before we let you go, we've been having this debate back and forth a little bit and talking about the Cavaliers, and they reel off another 15-game winning streak. Do they get the sense like a real contender, or do they kind of – because, look, we were here in Salt Lake City, and we were all rah-rah Jazz, but deep down, when they were the 1 seed, even Hans and I were like, this doesn't feel real. This doesn't feel like it's sustainable, and certainly it wasn't. Do you have that vibe with Cleveland, or do you think they're a real contender?
I think – how should I put this? I think they're a real contender, but I don't think they're as good as a fully healthy Boston team. I think the bar Boston can set is so high that fully if everything's equal – I'll still take Boston in a 6 or 7 game series, but I think they'll push them. I will say this, getting DeAndre Hunter for Cleveland at the trade deadline was huge. It just gives them a guy they can play at the 4 with Evan Mobley at the 5. They sat Jarrett Allen for stretches down the heart of that game where they beat Boston because they could play DeAndre Hunter there. And so I still don't think they can beat Boston, but I think that might be there's 3 clear best teams in the NBA, and they're one of them this year. So it's a little situational.
Well, we appreciate your time, Kurt. Thanks for hanging out with us. We apologize for getting to you late.
Oh, no.
Lloyd didn't tell us how long we were going on our last segment, so we apologize for that. But we'll do better next week.
Don't believe him, Kurt.
Don't even. First off, don't even worry about it, and B, it's always Lloyd's fault. So it's okay.
We love you, Kurt. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
Take care, guys.
Kurt Helin, who enjoys cheddar cheese on his apple pie. Now I'm going to have to try it.
I don't know, man. Doesn't the ice cream apple pie sound better? I'm not going to make it if I don't get this pie in me. Lloyd's been on me the last 2 days, man. I don't know what happened.
Maybe next time you're at a gas station, you get one of those Little Debbie apple pies and then take the nacho cheese sauce and then just try to experiment with that and see if that replicates what he's talking about. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I've got half of a Stanley pocket in my car, and I'll eat that. I'll get that in my system.
It's time to saddle up and talk about the winners and the losers. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, here's the good.
It is the good, it is the bad, it is the ugly right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you're all having a tremendous day today. Let's start with the good, shall we? And the Big 12 basketball conference schedule was 20 games. Hands, are we going to keep it at 20?
No, it's looking like they're going to move it to 18. It was one of the things that was announced when Brett Yormark was talking about NCAA tournament expansion. But he wants to take that Big 12 men's basketball schedule back to 18. Couple reasons. They found it really difficult inside a 20-game conference schedule to find the proper bye weeks or the proper bye opportunities. So they were worried about exhausting their kids. But you know what, Scotty, let's just tank all of that and let's get to the bottom of it. They want to be able to schedule maybe a little bit more outside of their conference and not work each other over. Mm-hmm. But when they added the Four Corner schools, they wanted to go to a 20-game conference schedule. They found that it presses their kids too hard and that it cannibalizes the conference too much. And they want to give the kids more rest. They want to give the conference more opportunity to play outside of the conference, to show dominance. And they think that's the better way to go. So they're going to take it from a 20-game conference schedule to 18-game conference schedule for Big 12 basketball play.
So moral of the story here is if you're a Big Sky team, you just got a lot more scheduling opportunities because they're not going to replace those 2 Big 12 games with Duke or North Carolina or Memphis. Like they're going to load it up with a bunch of patsies, and that's ultimately what the coaches want. Coaches are like, we're just getting our butts kicked 20 times this year. Why are we doing that when self-inflicted when we can trim it all the way back to 18? I like having as many conference games as possible so you can get a good judge of these teams. When you play home and home as often as you can, and I know a conference this size it's really impossible to do, but I want to see teams get as close to that as possible. I want to see, okay, BYU beats Iowa State on the road. What happens when Iowa State comes to Provo? Okay, BYU lost to Arizona at home. Okay, what happens when BYU goes to Arizona? Oh, look, they got a win. Normally, we would just assume if they didn't play that return game, we just would have assumed that BYU would have lost at Arizona because they lost in Provo to Arizona. And so that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it when you're evaluating your teams in conference play. And it kind of bums me out that we're not going to see that at a high level. I know it's just 2 games. I get the reasoning behind it, but I have a problem with that, much like the SEC, who wants to play as few SEC games as they possibly can.
Well, I think that the Big 12's got a lot to learn, and I think that they're learning it, Scotty. And one of the biggest things that they've got to learn is by adding the 4 corner schools, by having BYU, Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah, by adding that group, you have to max out Western Conference play. You can't have BYU play Arizona, Utah, and Colorado and miss Arizona State in a given year. Mm-hmm. The fact that Arizona State is not on their football schedule for 2025 is an absolute mistake because it's another opportunity to keep your kids close to campus. It's a quick flight. Instead of putting them on a flight all the way to Lubbock, Texas, in the beginning parts of November. I think I don't have the schedule up in front of me, but I think it's Texas Tech in the beginning parts of November, or getting them into Cincinnati. You got to go to Texas Tech. You got to go to Cincinnati. How nice would that be if instead of Cincinnati, you're at Arizona State? Well, the same thing needs to happen with the basketball scheduling. Every one of the 5 out here in the close West needs to max out their playing opportunities. And until they figure out how to do that, I think that they're kind of spinning their wheels and wasting time because the flights are just different. I know because I do it now. They're just different.
You do. And these are not easy cities to get to. That's one downside of going from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. I know Pullman was a little hard to get to. Corvallis was a little hard to get to. But other than that, it was a pretty easy flight to Seattle and Los Angeles, to Palo Alto. Those were easy places to get to. It's not easy, and I know they're chartering more often than not, but still, these are not high-level airports that you're going to in Ames or some of these other cities. And they're great venues, they're great college basketball towns, but they're not great airport towns. And you know that better than anybody because you fly commercial to your cities, and that means a lot of times you're on a 1 hour, 90-minute car drive after you get off the airport.
Yep. Yeah, it's a problem. So they got to figure that out. They got some lessons to learn. And moving it to an 18-game schedule, if they max out Western play and make sure that that's where they put their emphasis and focus and reduce the amount of travel for these basketball players, then I'm good with it. Good with it. But you're right. They're not going to schedule Duke and Connecticut. They're not. They're probably going to schedule lesser-end teams. What I'd like to see BYU do is add a Gonzaga or add a St. Mary's, but it's probably not what we're going to see just because I still think that there's rivalry beef with those teams. But that's the situation with Big 12 basketball. Yormark announced it.
All right, there's your bad. Let's get to the ugly. Let's get to the bad. My bad. I'm all over the place.
Well, this is a bad situation. Tiger Woods blew an Achilles. 49 years old. Crazy thing is on this one, Scotty, is I thought it would be the leg that he destroyed in the car accident. It's the opposite leg that he tore the Achilles on. So 49 years old, tore the Achilles on the good leg that he had left. He underwent surgery to fix it. I do believe that it was a full rupture because you can't have a partial Achilles, but I believe it was a full rupture. And he has now had a surgery every year, at least one every year since 2021, including a pretty serious back surgery that he had to go through. So anybody that's ever put hope out there that 49-year-old Tiger Woods could revisit was it 2018 Masters, Scotty?
Yeah, I want to say 17, 18, around there. It was pre-pandemic, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure Lloyd would probably know better than you or I, but I believe it was pre-pandemic. Anybody that's hoping for Tiger Woods to continue to press the Golden Bear, you can probably let go of that hope at all costs now.
Oh, yeah. That was I think that ended as soon as Elin pulled out the three wedge and took care of some.
Devastated him and the car.
2019 was his last, looks like the last Masters.
Okay, there you go, 2019. But, Lloyd, I don't know, man. 49, torn Achilles,
I'm just going to say it. It's time to go the way of Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, and just you hit that tee shot at the start the Masters, because that's your spot's waiting for you right there.
Yeah.
It's that time. Like, I know he's still only 49, and I guess there's a senior tour they can play on, but it's the body is not wanting to be a part of this.
No.
It's not following you.
It's giving out.
All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. A little whole world news coming up next right here on the Zone.
Go! It's time to span the globe for the hard-hitting news you care about. Well, not really. But hey, at least we found it interesting. This is Whole World News on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We've got the whole world in our hands.
You got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole world.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time for another edition of Whole World News, where we span the globe to at least find something that we find interesting. Hopefully you do too.
Well, I don't know if anybody's going to find this one interesting, but I find it kind of funny. We're going to go all the way to London to Top Secret Comedy Club. It's owned by a man named Mark Rotham. And, Scotty, he's doing something unprecedented for comedy clubs. He has announced he is officially banning all members, all potential customers that have had Botox injections. He will no longer let anybody in that has received Botox, man or woman. Here's his explanation. I've had numerous complaints from my performers who find it increasingly challenging to gauge audience engagement and bounce off their reactions. Comedy thrives on connection, and facial expressions play a huge part of that connection. We want people to laugh, cry, frown, sneer, but frozen faces from Botox impact the entire atmosphere. We hope trialing this ban will help move the needle and get facial reactions back into the room for the benefit of our comedians and the audience. Botox is banned.
How does one tell?
They run them through a set of facial expression tests as they come through the door, Scotty. Could you imagine what's our old boy that ran,
Keith Stubbs?
Yeah, could you imagine if Keith Stubbs instituted a facial reaction policy on entry? You have to be able to smile and show, complete emotional reaction before you're able to buy a seat.
Wow. Yeah, that's a little much. You're saying if you have Botox. All right, so, I mean, you've talked about it. You had Botox to the forehead. Does it feel like it impacted your ability to laugh?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, really?
Yes, absolutely. I've been Botoxed a few times.
Last time it hurt.
Well, the one, no, it's never hurt. It's always been embarrassing because I do have a Shar-Pei forehead, and it just makes my whole forehead sag. And, you picture if you were to Botox a bulldog, wrinkles would just continue to wrinkle more, and that's what happened.
So too much Botox and you're not getting in?
Too much Botox and you're not getting in.
Well, there goes John Lund.
Wow, that was a beautiful setup there.
John
Does it say anything about
it?
Does it say anything about hair transplants too?
No.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Oh, that's the line we can't cross.
I didn't think you were going to bring up the squirrel, but whatever.
Lundy has had both and multiple of both.
Hey, look, if I had if I had somebody that was like, hey, I don't know if Clay's still there with you guys, but if Clay's like, hey, guess what? I got this hair transplant place. You want to do some liners for him and endorsements? I'd be like, not only yes, but hell yes, let's go. I'd be more than happy to. So I got no beef. If anything, I'm jealous. Honestly.
I don't know.
Maybe not the Botox stuff, but
I don't know what I'd do with you being 150 pounds with that full head of hair. That's not the marriage that I engaged in. Like, that's not the
person.
That's not the man that I on air married.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
Who are you?
150 pounds and a full head of hair? I married you because you were much bigger.
Yeah, but think about having the ability to run your fingers through his hair.
Oh, geez, Lloyd. That got weird.
Man, Lloyd, you're having a day. You are having a day.
Hey, you're the one that's talking about who you're married to, bro. You're setting yourself up. You're just giving him the ammo.
I know.
You're handing him the shovel.
Hans has been my work husband for a long time.
It's 11 years.
Hey, Scott, let's go to Turkey, you and I. We'll go get the turkey. We'll go to Turkey.
That's where everybody's going now, isn't it?
It's cheap,
Turkey.
And I've got a lot of friends who have done it and come back. I'm telling you, it's amazing.
You've had friends go to Turkey for hair?
Yeah, Turkey's the hot spot for hair transplant right now.
It's amazing. It's like they charge you like $4,000. You have to get there, but it's like $4,000, and like you stay there for like a week in these amazing spa like places. They treat you.
Wait, it's only $4,000?
That's what I've heard.
It's only $4,000?
That's what I've heard. Plus your flight there. So
Scotty and Hans show might be taking their talents to Turkey.
Well, let's all go. We could do it. We'll do an RGS road trip, and we'll get some hair transplants.
Hey,
give up a trip to Africa, a hunting trip, and let's go to Turkey, and let's.
We'll do both. We'll puddle jump. We'll go get a head of hair and then head out to Africa.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. Are we allowed in Turkey after what happened here with
Freedom Cantor?
Yeah.
That's a good question. They're like, have you had any association with Utah Jazz? Well, yeah. All right. Well, you're going to have to stay here for the next 10 to 15 years. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I think we got a road trip, Hans. We going to do this?
Yeah, it looks like we're headed to Turkey. Yeah, we'll split the $6,000 and we'll each get half a head.
There we go.
Just the mohawk.
We'll do it one half
Just
at a time.
Mohawk.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just the mohawk. A center strip. That's all we want.
It is a Win Ticket Wednesday right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Again, we do it every Wednesday for your chance to win tickets. As up for grabs today, we have got 2 lawn tickets to see Pantera, the heaviest tour of the summer, with Ammon Amarth at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater coming up on August 20th. So you want those tickets, be calling number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE, and you could go see Pantera. All right, Hans. By the way, I sent you some pictures during the break. There's this cinnamon roll place right across the street, and they want $9 for one cinnamon roll. But, boy, these look like really good cinnamon rolls.
Yeah, they got all kinds of stuff, like a Oreo cheesecake cinnamon roll, peanut butter cheesecake cinnamon. So these are cinnamon rolls that have, like a topping?
Yeah, and the cheesesteak stuff, like, infused in them.
The cookie dough cheesecake roll looks good. So I would pay $9, but that thing needs to be the size of my fist.
Well, I think that second picture, that peanut butter cheesecake, it looks like the size of a Big Mac box, and it's taking up every possible centimeter of that box.
I kind of want you to do it, Scotty, just because I need you to test new food waters in Vegas for us, because we've got some good hot spots, but like, what if this is as incredible as it looks? The pictures of these cheesecake infused cinnamon rolls that have the peanut butter topping or the cookie dough topping or the cinnamon toast crunch topping. Actually, the cinnamon toast crunch roll looks the best to me. It looks like a creamy cinnamon topping on top of it with a caramel sauce, and then cinnamon toast crunch that's kind of crumbled up and topped on it. Like, that looks amazing to me. I want you to try it just to see if we can find another hot spot.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess if it's for the good of the show, it's probably P-card worthy, right, Lloyd? Oh, you go.
If it's exploratory for show purposes, P-card worthy for sure.
Okay. Well, I just for the record, I got your approval on this, so we should be good to go. All right, whole world news right here on 97.5. We did that last segment. Sorry, my phone says, or my computer says that it's 12:58 Pacific time.
Ooh. Well, I did want to mention this because
that's not correct.
I watched that Iowa State game, and we all saw Lipsy go down, and obviously Lipsy is the cornerstone of that Iowa State offense. And I just got an update on Twitter that says that Lipsy is going to be available tomorrow for the BYU game. Lipsy then was questioned about it and asked if there were concerns about his availability tomorrow. He said, "I don't think so. No, I don't think there's any concern." And then there's Gilbert on if shutting it down until the NCAA tournament is possible. Gilbert says it's a day-by-day thing. However it feels during that day, that's how we're probably going to go about it. But the latest is that Lipsy will be available for the BYU Iowa State game in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament tomorrow. So I think that's pretty sizable news. Because if they didn't have Lipsy, I would actually favor BYU in that game. You have a hard time not favoring BYU anyways because they just beat Iowa State on their home court. What do you think Vegas is going to do with this? I don't know if they've handicapped it yet.
I'm in a hotel that doesn't have a casino, unfortunately. I think that was probably arranged by somebody. So I will try to sneak to a sports book and find out. But I would assume it would be, I would go Iowa State 2.5, maybe 3.
Let's see. I'm pulling it up. Nice call. Iowa State opened up at a 1.5 favorite over BYU.
Yeah.
Iowa State, a 1.5 favorite over BYU at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri. That is a 10:30 tip.
I'm really curious to know because Iowa State, I think they've won 5 out of the last 10 Big 12 tournaments, and so their fans they love that tournament. It's like, okay, where would we rather be, Ames, Iowa, or Kansas City? Well, they're going to choose Kansas City. So, according to multiple reports there, that place is packed with Iowa State fans. Now, BYU fans, obviously, we know their deal. They travel wherever and they'll go wherever. So I am kind of curious to know if there will be any kind of a home court advantage for Iowa State. Certainly, it didn't matter when they played in Ames and BYU went up there and won, but it would be fascinating to see if how well represented BYU fans are going to be tomorrow, because I guarantee you Iowa State fans are going to be heavily represented.
Well, the other thing that I think will play into this is who walked out of that game in Ames feeling like the king and who walked out of it feeling slighted or feeling anger. And that's probably going to be Iowa State. You know, anytime you got revenge on your mind, that's why they always say it's hard to win 3 in a row. It's hard to win back-to-back because the team that loses, they sit up all night and they think about all the bad things they did and how they're going to fix the bad things. The team that wins, they go out, they party, they celebrate, they talk about the great moments. When they're watching film, they're like, oh, here comes the dunk. Oh, that's the alley-oop. Oh, Dallin Hall, look at that. Dallin Hall hanging on the rim. Oh, Dallin, you're such a dog. And in the meantime, you go to the Iowa State film, and these guys are going over every little miscue, every little mistake. And they're like, this is why we lost. We don't lose in it. We don't lose on our home court. We got to fight. And so there's a lot of mental game that plays into this BYU-Iowa State rematch. But I want to ask you this, Scotty. It's not that Cincinnati pushed Iowa State today, but they tipped at 10:30 today, local time. Iowa State's got a tip again tomorrow at 10:30 local time. Who's got the advantage? BYU, who was a top 4 seed that got the buys to the quarters, or Iowa State that maybe got a little bit of momentum, a little rhythm, a little bit of warm-up. But remember, Lipsy did get injured, left the court, but as I just told you, multiple people now announcing or reporting that Lipsy will be available for that game. Who's got the advantage?
I hate doing this to you. I just don't know because there's no rhyme or reason to this. I've seen it work both ways. The rest versus rust thing. I've seen some teams that just run out of gas and the other team got that extra day of rest and they just put the hammer to a team. And then I've seen some teams where absolutely playing that tune-up game is advantageous. I would say if there's one thing I would look at here, if there is a trend, and I've seen it work both ways, it's the team that plays the tune-up game sometimes plays better right out of the gate than the rested team. Now, end of the second half, 5-7 minutes left to go, you might see the rest start to give an advantage to BYU, but it would not surprise me to see Iowa State jump out to a quick, 12-2 lead or something like that right out of the gate because they're feeling that rhythm from last night or from today. And to your point, Hans, look, they've been told for a week now, how did you lose at home to BYU? These guys are new to our conference. We rule this conference, and you let them come into your home and embarrass you. You were down 20 points to this team, and you're lucky to send it to overtime. And, and so they've been hearing this over and over and over again. They know they're in the NCAA tournament. They know that there's technically really nothing to play for of any considerable value in terms of the NCAA tournament, but there's a lot of pride in place here. And when you feel like you got punked by BYU on your home court, yeah, it's going to simmer. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Iowa State. I'm not saying Iowa State wins this game, but I wouldn't surprise me if they jumped out to an early lead against BYU.
Well, they definitely have the notes on BYU because BYU put everything on display. Now they might have gone into that game thinking, well, let's put them on the free throw line. Let's make them earn it from the free throw line. And Richie Saunders went 13 for 13. Yegor Dimon went 4 for 4. They shot 81% as a team, and they just dominated at the free throw line. And in their minds, they might be thinking now, well, I guess when we get an open ball and we're running to the rim, keep an eye open for Keba Keita because that blindside block was pretty stinking ugly. And it grabbed momentum. They might be thinking to themselves, let's not worry about bench rotation because when Dallin Hall comes off the bench or when, who was it, Trey Stewart that came off the bench for a chunk of minutes, when these guys come off the bench, they're just as deadly. Although you know that these Big 12 tournaments starts to really limit bench production. That's just what happens. So you're going to be looking at heavy production from Yegor, heavy production from Watt Mag, heavy production from Richie Saunders, Keba Keita. And then I would imagine Dallin Hall is still going to get his 28 minutes, 28, 30 minutes, whatever he typically gets. And Iowa State's got all the notes on it, Scotty. And I know that they've got good coaching and they've got good talent. We'll see if they can make the adjustments. But also BYU's got the notes on Iowa State. Joshua Jefferson is a major free throw issue. He wants to get himself to the line. He wants to get aggressive and big down low, and he's a problem. Tamin Lipsey has an ability to shoot from anywhere on the court, so you're going to have to close tight. You have to guard him in his shorts. Iowa State, we watched Iowa State get really aggressive defensively, and the officials swallowed the whistles. They got really aggressive and forced the ref's hand and said, you can't call it all. Well, BYU is going to have to answer that aggression with aggression. Okay, officials, if this is how you're going to call it, well, we can play that game too. Mwap Matt can play that game. Keba Keita can play that game. Fus Chirori can play that game. Dallin Hall can play that game. So if you're going to get physical, well, if that's how you're going to call it, we're going to play physical and make the officials call it the same both ways. I just think that this matchup is so intriguing, Scotty.
And and all of that doesn't even bring the emotional factor into it, too. I mean, that's the one thing. I think BYU spent the first couple of years in the Big 12, or I guess last year in the Big 12, and they're like, oh, we're so happy to have you. And every time we went to Provo, it was such a nice venue, and they treated us so well. And now it's like, oh, crap, these guys are kicking our butts. Mm-hmm. Like this football team just ran roughshod through a bunch of our teams. This basketball team, I think the honeymoon might be coming to an end here if BYU continues to play as well as they have, because it's like, well, wait a minute here. That's not something that we that's not something we want. And it's certainly nice that they're nice to us when we go to Provo and they give us free Cougar Tails. But hey, look, we gotta wise up. These dudes are good. It's not just a fun team to have around anymore. These guys are becoming a problem for all of us.
Yeah, and that's why BYU's got to keep the pedal down. Because, Scotty, one thing we talked about when BYU entered the Big 12 was with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, there's a bell cow opportunity. Who's going to seize this conference? Who's going to be the big brand? Who's going to be the big dog? Who's going to lead them? And BYU is a brand that could do it, but they have to do it through winning. You can't do it off brand. You have to go into the conference and you got to win. That's how Utah seized the Pac-12 at the back end of that conference. Utah owned it because they kept winning the conference. Now, they didn't do it in basketball, but they did it in football. BYU right now, they know they've got the momentum. They're spending the money. They're putting in the resources. They're hiring the coaches, and they're currently capitalizing on momentum. If they go and win a Big 12 tournament, and in the first year that you just put the order out about an hour ago that BYU will win a Big 12 conference tournament within the next 10 years, and they do it in year one, everybody's eyes will be open, and they should be open. And I think it's a heavy possibility that they could do it. Now, Houston's really good, and Houston's got the easier run to the championship game. But if BYU gets past Iowa State, I think that is a gigantic symbol. Now, BYU's got to get past Houston in the semis. Mm-hmm. Right? BYU's got to get past Houston in the semis. That's going to be the tough game. But let's say they do that. Let's say they get past Houston and meet up with whoever. Arizona, would it be potentially in the finals? Well, they beat Arizona. Yep. So it's possible, and it's exciting, and it tips at 10:30 tomorrow.
Right? 10:30 Mountain Time or 10:30 Central?
10:30 Mountain Time.
10:30
on
Mountain.
ESPN2.
So we'll get the last part of that game on our show and break it down, and we'll have complete coverage. And we got people out there at the game, and so we'll have it we'll have complete coverage from top to bottom right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Do you think that an 8-game winning streak plays in good to this?
Yeah.
I don't like. Of course it does. But do you look at an 8-game winning streak? Is it like hitting on green 8 times and red's going to eventually hit? Or are you like, no, man, you gather all that momentum and you rock and roll with it?
I see your point. I think that there could be some element to that. I mean, if you look at that Utah team that played in a national championship game and probably should have won a national championship that year, they lost in the WAC tournament. I think early in the WAC tournament. Some Utah historian can tell me I'm wrong, but I know they didn't win the tournament that year. And so, going in with maybe licking your wounds a little bit, having the coach bark at you a little bit as you go into the NCAA tournament may not necessarily be a bad thing. And you're right. There is a weight with a long winning streak that's on your shoulders that yeah, I think once you remove that, could be a problem because BYU's in. There's no question about that. So they don't have to play their way into the tournament. And maybe a loss and a couple extra days off might be beneficial because you are locked into Thursday. You don't get that extra day of the NCAA tournament because of Sunday play. So you have to play on Thursday. And if you play 3 games in 3 days with the last one being on Saturday, yeah, there might be a little wear and tear there.
Well, my issue with it is if I'm Houston, if I'm Iowa State, if I'm Arizona, I know who the hot hand was playing into this tournament. BYU's got the biggest target on their back. They've got the biggest target. If I'm playing on that team, I know, okay, I got to get past Iowa State, had to get past Cincinnati. I know I had to get past Cincinnati. I know where the target is because we were just a victim of that 8-game rollout. Arizona was a victim of that 8-game rollout. Kansas State was a victim. Kansas was a victim of that 8-game rollout. The biggest target of this tournament is on BYU. That's why if BYU answered this and got a couple wins in this tournament, let's say they did beat Iowa State and then beat Houston, it would be hard to find a better season, a better regular season than this, just based off Big 12 opponents, an 8-game win streak, and then following that up with a couple of big wins in tournament play. It's just an exciting opportunity for BYU.
Hands with Scotty. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time for another edition of Sports Roulette. We take some of the big storylines, put it on a roulette wheel, we spin it. Wherever that little ball lands is what we end up talking about. I'm here in Las Vegas, Utah State, now awaiting the winner of the UNLV Air Force game. That's who they will play tomorrow. It'll be a late-night game tomorrow. BYU, we found out earlier, will take on Iowa State as Iowa State gets their first-round win. And so the scene is set. Thursdays in conference tournaments, that's when the action really begins. So let's get to it. Lloyd, fire up that wheel.
Mountaineers shouldn't dance anyways.
Well, this is a hilarious video. The West Virginia Mountaineers hired Rich Rodriguez to be their new head football coach. His second stint, I believe, with the Mountaineers, Scotty. What is this, probably his 6th or 7th stop as a head coach in college football? And we know Rich Rod is kind of that, he'll pull the finger guns at you and yeah, you bet. He's kind of the laid-back, funny, casual guy that likes to kick back a little bit. He can be goofy. He can be serious. He can be a good coach at times. But Rich Rod was sitting down after one of his spring practices yesterday and had this to say about his athletes' social media habits.
No, I don't really. I mean, they're going to be on it, so it's not. I'm not banning them from. I just banning them from dancing on it. It's like, look, we try to have a hard edge, whatever, and you're in there, in your tights, dancing on TikTok. Ain't quite the image of our program that I want. But I told the team today, I said everything today is about trying to make everybody individual. It's all about the individual. It's all about the individual. And I said football is one of the last things that was got to be more about the team than the individual. And so I banned dancing on TikTok. I guess I did that. But anything that doesn't look like our program should look, I think it's just like, come on. Really? I mean, and I'm allowed to do that, I guess. I can have rules. Now, when they, like I said, 20 years from now, they want to be sitting in their pajamas in the basement, eating Cheetos and watching TikTok or whatever the hell, they can go at it. Smoking cannabis, whatever. I mean, knock yourself out. But, the hope their focus can be on winning football games. How about let's win the football game and not worry about winning the TikTok.
Oh, God bless you, Rich Rod. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's so much good to that quote. I love it. I absolutely love it.
He said, we're out here trying to win a football game. How does it look when you're dancing in tights? You know, he was beating around the bush so bad of how he wants actual men to look that are playing the game of football and how you look when you're on TikTok putting together a synchronized dancing routine. Like, he's got a point, Scotty. You look like a dope, and it makes our program look like dopes. And you know how bad I hate social media. I hate it. It is so fake. It is so orchestrated. It is so dopey. And then people watch it, and they're like, well, that's how we're supposed to be as a society? No, that's not how you're supposed to be as a society. Let's purge this stuff. Let's all be Rich Rodriguez. Let's get rid of the TikToks. Let's get rid of the dopey dance routines. Let's get rid of all the staged husband and wife back and forth stupid activity. Let's get rid of it all. Let's go back to being real men with real character as real football players. Good on Rich Rod. Good on Rich Rod.
Do we need to get Mitch Harper on here for a comment? I don't know.
What did he do?
Oh, I sent it to you.
No, I didn't see it.
Mitch has got a video of him dancing with his daughters. Now, with his daughters, it might be, I think he's probably all right.
Yeah, we
Did
might
you not
have to
see it?
talk to Mitch about that.
All right. Well, Lloyd, that's your and I will say this. I am very grateful that Maddie, who runs all of or instructs us on all of our social media accounts, she has never told us, A, we have to be on TikTok, and B, we have to dance on TikTok. There's been no instruction to dance. Now, she wants us to pump out the content, and we do our best and probably need to do a little bit better, but she's never been like, hey, look, you guys really got to, here's a song, and it's really popular right now, and you guys need to dance. No, she has not done that. So
I'm not putting that quarter in, and I'm not dancing.
No, man. No. Rich Rod has reignited my interest in being a man again. I just think when you open up TikTok, you put down manhood.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. All right, Lloyd, spin it.
Cooper Kupp on the move.
Read the headline, Lloyd.
Children.
Read the headline.
Bunch of sophomoric children.
I was kind of proud of that one.
You should be proud, but I'm not doing it.
Adam Schefter says that there are two teams right now that are vying for the services of Cooper Kupp, who has just been released by the Rams. Rams were able to pick up Devontae Adams, so one of the best wide receivers over the last, 6-7 years in the league is now looking for a new home. He might be a little long in the tooth. He might be a little injury-prone now, but I can't help but think that he can't help out a team in a big way for at least another year or two.
Am I mistaken in thinking that Cooper Kupp was up for a league MVP a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like two or 3 years ago. He was right there.
He was dominant, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This guy is a game changer. And, Lloyd, if our Raiders don't get him, then it's just another shot against our Las Vegas Raiders. Tom Brady knows good receiving. And if Tom Brady has anything to do or say with this, he'll have Cooper Kupp in the silver and black. Okay, so who are they rumoring are the two teams that are interested in Kupp's performance?
No word as of yet as to who the teams are going after him, but I think everybody wants him to some extent. It's just it's just who has the financial wherewithal to really pay him what I'm sure he wants.
Well, if I'm Cooper Kupp, I am way less interested in the money, and I'm really interested in the arm that's throwing to me.
Mm-hmm.
That
eliminates the Raiders.
If you've got Geno Smith dishing to you, then you're thinking about it. Let's be honest.
Pete Carroll knows how to use a receiver. That's
yes, he does.
Sure. He'll throw it to receiver well before he'll hand it to a 250-pound back on the 1 yard line.
Yeah. Hey, Cooper, we're going to run so many slants for you on 1st and goal from the 1.
On press coverage with the tight outside backer.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I cannot believe my Raiders.
Oh, shut up.
You know, Lloyd doesn't lose his cool very often, but, boy, you got him there. He just blew his
You
top.
need to stop. You need to stop. It's not, it's actually not even funny anymore. You've worn it out.
It's not. It's not intended to be a. It's not intended to be a joke.
Oh, it is.
He's sharing his opinion as a fan.
Sad times are these when Raiders fans turn against each other.
Yeah, geez.
When we can't have anything in common.
French women,
okay, Lloyd, that's not going to help anything.
It helps me. Makes me feel better.
I do apologize to our listeners for my voice.
You should apologize to them.
It's bad allergies.
Yeah.
I'm just dealing with bad allergies.
Hans and Scotty, we'll wrap up this bad boy next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Draw me like your French women, Jack.
Number 1.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, wrapping up another edition of the show. Fun one today. We'll be back at it tomorrow. We'll know who Utah State's going to play in the quarterfinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament, and we'll be near the end of the BYU game as they take on Iowa State. That game will start tomorrow at 10:30. So about the time we get to our 12:30 segment, that game will probably be over, and we'll have complete coverage from Kansas City.
Oh, boy, Scotty. Fun day. Even though Lloyd was a little upset, it was a fun day. I told you about my teammate situation. I've got an old professional teammate, and there is a nightmare that is playing out on social media. And his jilted ex-wife has somehow seized his Facebook and is releasing video that she's been taking of him over the years, of him being emotionally abusive. And it's all on Facebook to his own family members using his own Facebook account. And I don't know if I've ever been drawn into soap opera more deeply than I'm drawn in right now. Because I had no idea that this old teammate of mine was up to these kinds of things. Like, he got his 6th DWI the other day. Ooh. And yeah, she goes ahead and posts videos of that DWI right here on his Facebook. Man, don't ever upset a woman.
Yeah, that's fair, especially if you've got 6 DWIs and you've been emotionally and physically abusive.
And a child with that individual.
And a child. Oh, yeah. Geez.
And then if you decide that that's how you want to be, make sure that you don't share your Facebook account and password, because she's got it seized. There's nothing he can do. No, and he's got family that's on here just pleading with this woman to stop because these videos are so incriminating. He's going to end up in prison. She's going to get him put in prison.
Well, it sounds like he kind of deserves it.
Well, that's absolutely it. I mean, 6 DWIs. He should be in prison on number 1, but number 2 should probably be in prison for 10 years. Number 3, he shouldn't see the outside of a prison wall, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you're going to be that big of an idiot.
Yep. All right, that wraps it up for us. Back at it tomorrow. Hans and Scotty, this is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.